Ukraine launched one of its largest drone attacks on Russian territory, striking an ammunition plant, oil terminal, and weapons depot across 14 regions. The strikes used exclusively Ukrainian-made weapons as Kyiv rapidly expands domestic defense production to reduce reliance on Western military aid. Ukraine now produces over 40% of frontline weapons domestically and plans to begin exporting surplus arms by year-end for additional funding. Long-range Ukrainian drones and missiles hit a major Russian ammunition plant, a key oil terminal, and an important weapons depot behind the front line, Ukraine's president and military said Monday, as Kyiv cranked up pressure on Moscow's military logistics. The Ukrainian General Staff said it struck the Sverdlov ammunition plant in the Nizhny Novgorod region of western Russia overnight, causing multiple explosions and a fire. It said the plant supplies Russian forces with aviation and artillery ordnance, aviation bombs, and anti-aircraft and anti-tank munitions. Ukraine also hit an oil terminal in Crimea, starting a blaze, and an ammunition depot of Russia's 18th Combined Arms Army, the General Staff said. Russian authorities acknowledged a major Ukrainian drone attack over 14 Russian regions, as well as the annexed Ukrainian peninsula of Crimea and around the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. But they gave few details beyond claiming that air defenses shot down 251 Ukrainian drones, making it one of the biggest Ukrainian barrages of Russian territory since the war began more than 3 years ago. Gleb Nikitin, the governor of the Nizhny Novgorod region, said that air defenses fended off an attack by 20 Ukrainian drones on a local industrial zone that includes the ammo plant, and that no facilities were damaged. Ukraine's long-range attacks on refineries and other oil facilities contributed to Russian fuel shortages at the pump in August. Improving domestically produced weapons, especially drones, has been one of Ukrainian authorities' chief goals as the government strives to counter Russia's invasion and reach deeper into Russia with strikes that put military, political, and social pressure on President Vladimir Putin. Though Russia's national economy and army are much bigger than Ukraine's, Kyiv has largely limited Russian battlefield gains to slow and costly progress across the Ukrainian countryside, as cutting-edge drone technology makes up in part for its shortage of soldiers. Uncertain of what Western military support it can count on to thwart Russia's invasion, Ukraine has swiftly developed its defense manufacturing capacity. It is already sharing its drone expertise with European countries and is discussing possible technology and production cooperation with the United States. Ukrainian officials have suggested they would like the United States to supply Tomahawk cruise missiles so that more Russian assets in the rear can be targeted. Meantime, Ukraine is increasingly using domestically developed long-range drones, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Monday, and Ukraine expects to expand such capabilities if it can ensure funding from abroad. He also indicated that Ukraine had used its own missiles for the strikes on Russian soil. The main thing to understand is that in recent days, Ukraine has used exclusively Ukrainian-made weapons, not only drones, Zelensky said during a news conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof in Kiev. We expect greater capabilities, but they depend on financial resources, he said. Ukraine's mushrooming defense industry could begin exporting surplus weapons production by the end of this year, using the revenue to help buy sophisticated systems it can't make itself, Zelensky said. By year's end, Ukraine hopes to provide at least half the weapons its troops need on the front line, Zelensky said at a defense industry forum in Kyiv. Already at the front, more than 40% of the weapons used are weapons produced in Ukraine or with Ukraine, the president said in a speech. The country last year produced and delivered 2.4 million shells to the front line, according to the Ukrainian leader. Ukraine is currently producing 40 Bodana self-propelled artillery systems a month, Zelensky said. By comparison, the production rate in April 2024 stood at 10 units per month. The time has come to launch the export of our Ukrainian weapons, those types of weapons that we have in surplus and therefore can be exported so that there is funding for those types of weapons that are especially needed for defense, Zelensky said in a speech, possibly referring to American-made Patriot air defense systems. He said Ukraine already has agreements to start exports to Europe, the United States, and the Middle East, and purchases could begin by the end of this year. With negotiations underway for weapons delivery to Ukraine, the first targets have been publicly confirmed. The Yelabuga Shahid factory producing thousands of kamikaze drones tops the list, as Ukraine plans strikes on over 1,600 military targets deep inside Russian territory. With the negotiations behind the scenes for the delivery of weapons to Ukraine, if Putin's meeting proves to be fruitless, the first targets of the powerful weapon have been publicly confirmed. With thousands of them, some of which are crucial for Russian operations against Ukraine, but also for keeping the internal peace, the possible delivery has caused immense pressure on the Russian leadership ahead of the scheduled talks. The first confirmed Tomahawk target is the Yelabuga Shahid factory in Tatarstan, a giant drone assembly complex producing thousands of kamikaze drones that feed Russia's campaign of strikes on Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. Hitting Yelabuga with Tomahawk cruise missiles would be qualitatively different from Ukraine's long-range drone strikes, as Tomahawks carry far bigger warheads, 450 kilograms compared to the typical 80 to 120 kilograms for drones. Tomahawks fly low, using terrain-following navigation and satellite guidance, and can be steered or reprogrammed mid-flight. A handful of well-placed cruise missiles could crater production halls, destroy stockpiles, and sever critical production lines in a way that even the most advanced drones cannot. That destructive punch is why Yelabuga is being discussed as a priority target for when Tomahawk missiles arrive in Ukraine. It's important to note that the United States has not yet handed Tomahawks over, but public hints and diplomatic traffic have made the possibility quite real, especially if the talks are unsatisfactory. US and allied officials are weighing political escalatory risks against the strategic value of degrading Russia's war machine capacity. Politically, the move would be seismic, as supplying Tomahawks to Ukraine would signal that the strongest NATO country is willing to enable strategic strikes deep inside Russian territory, not just more of the tactical support that has dominated aid packages so far. Tomahawks are effective because of their combination of payload, range, and flight profile, giving Ukraine a striking capability it doesn't currently have. A single missile can carry a warhead capable of destroying hardened industrial facilities with terminal accuracy at ranges of over 1,600 to 2,500 kilometers, depending on the variants. Yet the Tomahawks are not invulnerable, as their subsonic speeds and flight paths can be contested by layered air defenses and interceptors if early warning systems are intact. This makes Ukraine's continued campaign to strip away Russian radar, electronic warfare, and air defense launchers extremely important, as this is what would make Tomahawk strikes feasible and lower the probability of interception.